Okay, welcome everybody. So excited to talk today. We're doing our twice a month team training, and this topic today is follow-ups, which is such an important one. It's one that I think couldn't be talked about more in the world of sales, which is what we do. And it's one that I feel like is kind of like buffered and cocooned inside a world of kind of like mindset and emotion and like mental headspace reality of being in this industry. Yes, I do have a goat on my lap right now. This is Penelope. She will lay down and fall asleep in a second. But we, I think it's such an important topic and one we wanted to bring up because as we, especially a lot of us on our team, are coming from another company, right? And pivoting from something we've done, a conversation we've been really familiar with for a long time, which comes with it a certain flow, a certain approach. We knew how to follow up, we knew how to close, we knew how to do it. And as we're in a new space, whether you're new to sales in general, whether you're new to beauty or holistic health or wellness or hormone health, right? Like this is a different conversation. It's a different company. It's a different mission and might feel really a lot like something. Maybe it's just an elevated one from where you were at. Maybe it's a complete 180. Either way, or maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just an extension. Maybe it doesn't feel like it's all that different, but it's different products, right? So it takes a different finessing, it takes a different process, in my opinion, and what I'm finding. I had a couple people on my team even just this week say, like, I'm just trying to still figure out how to get people off the fence here. And that's not to say that they won't get off the fence. It just, I think I wanted to bring to the forefront and just like name the elephant in the room that like this is gonna take different skills. Might take a little longer. It might take a different approach. And it's figure outable. You will figure it out as long as you stick with it. So I wanted to have like a really candid conversation around what that looks like and some ways to do it because where I find myself struggling is like I know how to do this in my sleep before. And now I'm like, okay, I need to wake up. And obviously when I'm doing this, I actually have to put a lot of thought and energy and intention and some shifts. And I know Lindsay's going to talk a little bit about just the shifting of social media in general, because it's not just a new company, it's also the way social media has changed too, right? And we were just talking before we started recording around like different ways to do this business. And we've done other trainings around like doing home parties or pop-up events in local community businesses, right? Or, Jason, Christine, and some of the other ladies did a fun virtual open house kind of thing last night. That was great. And so everyone's really doing such an amazing job thinking outside the box and trying new things in terms of how you're talking, communicating, sharing, networking. And so we want to like bring that to the core of like what's happening in that inbox, because really the magic in this business, no matter how you're showing up, has to happen in your inbox. And if you can't get to that, ultimately that yes, that that purchase, and that enrollment, then you're not going to see that growth that we need. We're in a sales business, and I love talking about sales. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Before I share the slides, Carrie or Jace or Lindsay or anyone, do you have anything to add to that to get us started? Okay. And I want to invite you to be an active participator in this. Like if you have ideas or perspective, even if you're not like leading the call, like please share yours, or just be really candid and honest with your experiences and your struggles and what you're wanting to really where you're wanting to really like see some difference. So let me share the slides. There we go. Can you see them? Okay. So I'm just going to start really fast and just, this was a version of this was taught to me very early on in my career. And I think I want to take the emotion out of this process. in a lot of ways. We're going to put it back in the end, but we're going to take the emotion out of it and look at this for what it is. This is sales. We are selling. It's not a Nikki word. It's not a 4-letter word. Everything you do all day, you're buying something from someone who's selling something to you. It is a necessary exchange in our world, right? And I think of like, we came from the fitness world. If I wanted to have a cute booty in my bikini or whatever, or like to have nice toned arms, I would train my body a certain way to reach those goals, right? And I think of business and my career the same way. If I'm wanting to be a good leader, guess what? I'm going to do a lot of personal development, professional development around becoming a good leader. I didn't come into this business 10 years ago with any sales skills, I thought, but I had waited tables for 20 years. And sure as heck could I always, knew the power of suggestive selling and, had been taught about sales through a waitressing lens and bartending lens for so many, I knew how to get a ticket up. The higher the ticket, the higher the tip, theoretically, right? So like we all have, I think, innately some sales skills, because even as a parent, how often are you selling and negotiating with your children? And etc. So I think that if we take the emotion out of it and look at it as like a skill we can build, a muscle we can train, it's so duplicatable for everyone. And so this has been something that has stuck with me for a decade now, is this idea of like what it takes to really get to that yes. And the idea of it, and I'll make this just short and like summarize this, is that it takes basically 5 invites, 5 contacts, 5 touch points, 5 follow-ups for someone to get to yes, 5 to 8, right? 5 to 8, it takes 5 to 8 invites, follow-ups, etc., for someone to say yes and get to that point. But the part that I wanted to highlight was this part right here, is that after almost half of people in the sales world will only invite someone one time, will only ask for one time, and then they don't ever follow up. 80% of people have given up by the 3rd, right? And it takes 5 to 7, which means that only 20% of salespeople will ever get to that yes, because they're the only ones that are willing to get to that 5th, 5th, 6th, or 7th contact, right? So if we know that it requires 5 to 7, but we stop at 1 or 2, right? There's a big disconnect there. And I think that's where we have to train our brain and the importance of what a follow-up looks like. And I think when you look at a traditional sales job, those might look a little different than it looks like for us in the social selling world. So we'll differentiate that a little bit. But for me, that empowered me and inspired me a long, long time ago, because I was like, well, I'm in control of whether I stop at 1, 2, 3, or 8. I'm in control. So if I want to be that top 5%, 20%, I'm in control of that. All I have to do is keep connecting with this person, right? So I hope that, and it's because it's all a funnel, right? And people are going to move through that funnel one way or another. Before we go, does anyone have anything they want to add to this?
Yeah, Jamie, I do actually, because my former background is middle school math teaching, and one of these slides similar to this came into my view when I first started with the last business, and I was blown away because it said 2% of sales happen on the first contact, just 2. And most people are like, and I'm done, and then it was very small numbers till you're saying like that 4th contact, and it was only up to 10% at that point. And I remember the graphic going all the way 5 to 12 contacts or 12 touch points. So if people are getting to 7 and thinking it has to happen by 8 and then giving up, just keep going, maybe just a little bit longer, because statistics, show that by the 12th even, that you're able to build that relationship. And it is a little different here. So I'm still figuring it out too, and with you all. And I just thought that understanding how minuscule the amount of people that will say yes on that first one was eye-opening. And I was like, wow, geez, and we're going to have a lot of conversations. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that.
And it's not, and I think that just shows that it's not about you, right? It is about math. It is not like we take that so personally as like this, oh, I did it wrong, or they don't want me. Like we internalize these, especially women, like this messaging of like, oh, it's me. No, it's just math. It's just statistics. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about kind of like umbrella, as far as I kind of already touched on this, but like sales is a skill. So let's be skillful in how we do this. I have some simple rules about selling. I would love to share with you. Like, one is be a human. I think we've all, like, be human. How would you talk to someone if you ran into them at Target, at the grocery store, at the pickup line, right? Like, lead with your heart, be normal. I feel like sometimes we can get so systemized and robotic, and especially, we've seen like online bullies, like the heart and the person gets taken out of the when it's just a screen. So you can also control like being how you show up in that space, like be your silly self. If you like would talk some way in real life, I would say talk that way online, and like just make sure your heart is still there. I love this expression. It was taught to us in a training years ago, but like be more sure. If someone is talking to you about something, like you can just bring the energy of being more sure about what not that you don't have to like fake competence that you don't have. Just be more sure about what you're offering, more sure about that the experience that they have, more sure that this is a great fit, more sure that they're gonna love this choice and this investment in this product or this company, right? um, because people are looking to you as the guide, as the expert, as the one they trust to give them a recommendation. And I always go back to the waitressing example of like, if someone was to ask me, or if I ask a waitress of like, oh, how's this dish? Or how, like, which of these two would you choose? And they're like, I don't know. Oh, it's okay, I guess. Right. And I'm like, okay, you didn't inspire confidence in making. I'm not choosing the fajitas then for sure, because you're not more sure. If you have a waitress or someone that's like, oh my God, I love this, it's my favorite thing on the menu, then of course I'm gonna get that, right? So be more sure. Um, I hear a lot of people saying like, I don't want to be sales, you're icky. Don't be icky then. Don't act icky. Like that's a really simple thing. Like people are selling every single day. You're going to see people that do it in a way that makes you feel icky. You're going to see people in a way that makes you feel seen and inspired and excited. Just emulate that person, the one you want to be like. Okay. I think that's just a roadblock we put in our own way to not have to take action. And it's completely again in our control. Also stop shuffling the same deck of people and expecting more than 4 aces, right? So you have a deck of cards. How many aces are going to be in a deck of cards? 4. But yeah, I see people a lot of times, like as we're waiting and we're hovering, almost helicoptering over the same pool of people that we're wanting to say yes to. And we keep like recycling the same people again and again versus expanding our list and networking. And we'll talk more about that in a future training, but like keep finding new people. That's the beauty of being in an online space, really, is that there's this infinite pool of people that are our people. And then I think the other one rule about sales and follow-ups is like assume the best. Assume that they're just busy. Assume that there is just not a good time. Assume that they just haven't gotten back to you. Assume that they want what you have to offer because you believe in what you're offering. Um, being like people will say yes to you because they like, know, and trust you. Okay. And remember that that's something that you have to earn. Okay. A lot of times people get really wrapped up in being interesting on social media versus taking the time to be interested in the people they're talking to. So take that time to build the relationship. I think it's so essential that you start your conversation with anyone who expresses some interest with like, what are they looking for? What problems are they wanting to solve? What pain points are they looking for help with? What about your post that they reached out about and resonated with them? You have to build that foundation because that's something you can follow up on. But that also helps you get to know them and builds that connective tissue so that you know how you're going to guide them. And then continue to offer value. Like if you've got and then if you found like a resource online or you've got an educational event, like share those kind of things and continue to be that help to them, whether they've bought something from you or not. I think that continues to build trust. That's not to say coach or work for free, but you can serve them and and find resources for them just with a quick Google search. I think you can use social media to show your value system, your character, your personality, your heart. That helps people like you and feel like they know you. And that is really essential most of the time for all of us in the social space, like that aren't, like that just don't have like a viral following where you post a link and you click it. That's not my following. Like they buy from me because they know, like, and trust me. And I've had to earn that over a decade, right? And then just be patient, because I would never want to feel pressured or bullied or shamed into saying yes before I was ready, because someone was trying to get to a goal of some sort. So just be patient. This is about their time when they're ready. You want to keep that energy up. We just talked about, like, they did a really fun event last night. Like, always, it isn't just like a one post and an invite and that's the one thing you're inviting to. There's follow-ups for me look like invites to all the things. Like I use all the things I've got going on, and I plan, whether it's a hormone harmony event or a pop-up event or a live class, or if I'm going to do a biz op call or a book club or something, right? Like I'm using those as a check-in point. Like, oh, hey, I wanted to make sure you knew I was hosting this. It would be really great to give you a little bit more info about the gut health stuff we were talking about, or etc. And I use social media strategically to publicly talk about a lot of those things, so they know that they will have an experience and a community with me, and there will be things that they can continue to grow in that is fun, versus just they're not just buying a face cleaner from me. Like they're getting a whole experience that doesn't necessarily have to look like me one-on-one coaching them anymore, but I still want to create opportunities for them to see value in their choice with me. And then I already touched on this, but I'm going to say it again. Like you choose, how many follow-ups you do. Like, that statistics are in our favor if we choose to be the one with stick-to-itiveness. And a lot of times we can really let hurt, fear, rejection, internalized limiting beliefs be the thing that keeps us from being the difference maker on our own lives. So be that less than 20% that sticks with someone for the long haul. I'll come back to this. I'll just do this really fast. So my question is, I put these examples. So is this a follow-up or a contact? A contact can also be called a touch point, or just a way to like keep that energy going. There's a difference, right? A follow-up is like an actual follow-up to your invite. Are you ready yet kind of thing. And a contact or a touch point is where you're keeping that relationship alive. So your Instagram story or social media post or Facebook group post, would that be a follow-up or contact point? What do you think? Yes or no? You can put in the chat or just shake your head. What about voice memos? Is that a follow-up or a contact point?
Either.
Either, yeah. And I would say the first one, we can just say so Instagram story, social media post, or Facebook group post. I would say that's not a follow-up or a contact point. That's just broadcasting, right? Like that's just information sharing. Voice memos can be a follow-up point or a contact point. This was actually a voice memo series around Love is Blind. That was not around a follow-up at all. We were talking about Love is Blind, but it was a contact point that kept that relationship going. What about engaging on someone's stories or social media posts? Is that a follow-up or a contact? It would be a contact, right? It could be a touch point where you're continuing to keep that relationship alive. What about a heart emoji? Just bumping up a conversation. That happens to be my favorite follow-up of all time, because I don't have anything to say. I just put a heart emoji and I assume the best. I assume that they just got busy or got lost in their inbox. And it often is the number one thing that someone will come back and be like, oh my gosh, I kept meaning to respond. I have been thinking about you, right? So it might not to some people seem like a follow-up, but for me, this is like my number one go-to follow-up strategy. What about a phone call? Is that a follow-up? Can that be a follow-up or a contact point? Absolutely both. So these are just some examples of like what came to mind first when I thought about it. And then a lot of times follow-ups have to happen because someone has objections or fears or like a roadblock for themselves, right? And we'll work through, we'll do a specific objections training, and I always use feel, felt, found. But what I do more than anything is I use those common objections and those common roadblocks for people in my social media posts. And I use my social media strategically to like share my feel, felt, found publicly to the world. So everyone else out there who wouldn't even, I'm not even in conversation with, because they already are so roadblocked in that limit and that objection, they don't even think that having a conversation is the right fit for them. So I will use my social media to speak to objections loudly all the time. It also takes the pressure off someone if they can be like, oh, okay, I feel that same way. Maybe I could do this. All right, that was a lot. Carrie, your turn. Take it away.
No, that was great. And also, I saw in the chat, I love that Rita said not following up sometimes feels even more icky. And that's so true, because then it feels salesy, right? If you're just asking once and never coming back to them. And honestly, that's how I felt or feel. And that's how I framed my follow-ups, to take some ownership and to also not feel icky about the actual invite. Things are a little bit different here if you're used to doing follow-ups. I am inviting to a space where people can ask questions and learn about products in that space. So if people are not being referrals to me, or they're not commenting on my social media to start a conversation naturally, or they're not actively reaching out to me themselves, then I'm inviting them to that informational group. That is how I've started, and it seems to be working well, but it is a slower process. So my invite, if you will, if I haven't invited them yet, I reach out to somebody and I say, sorry, I didn't think of you sooner. And then I go into inviting them to my info group, explaining what they can expect there. It's an info group where I'm helping others make simple swaps for products that they are currently using, reducing the toxins we are exposed to. Feels so important to me right now, for not only me, but for my girls too. So I wanted to ask if this is something you might be interested in. Now, if I'm doing that in script and just writing it out, obviously I have their name there, but if I'm doing it in voice message, I like to say their name in the message and maybe add something else, because that is, when that's spoken, it's a pretty short message and you got the whole minute if you'd like to use that or whatnot, even more now, right? But I like to personalize it and say, like, it's important to me right now, and especially being a mom of, a 12 and 14-year-old, having toxin-free, hormone-safe products in our home for them is, my job as their mom, and to introduce them to things that they can use long term. By the way, they are loving the 5-in-1. My 14-year-old that struggled a little bit with hormonal acne and just texture in her skin, the 5-in-1 and the night oil are her favorite combo that she's ever used before. And she's like, Mom, my skin is like glowy and it's not oily. So if you have middle school kids or know of any, they're really concerned about their skin, and this was affecting her confidence and things. And just to see your own child like light up like that over a product, it definitely helps me to feel icky if I don't follow up. Now, if it's someone that I invited but I haven't heard anything, it's typically going to be a voice message for me. Sometimes it's a video, and what I've done in the past with videos is I just say, I keep it general in the intro, and I just like, hey, it's been a little bit. I won't, if I'm saying exactly these words, I sense some hesitation, or we haven't chatted in a minute. I wanted to see how you're doing and seeing if something was holding you back or you had any questions for me. I know it's a super nutty time right now with spring break, and again, relating into what's going on right now. And I just wanted you to know I was thinking of you and wanted to check in. That is always received well. So is the last one. That's simple and sweet and to the point. Sorry didn't get back to you sooner. Life got a little nutty. Are you ready to make some simple swaps with me? I feel like with these 2 and 3, taking some ownership of being crazy and nutty, it gives them that out. Like Jamie was saying with the heart, like, oh, hey, I'm still here for you. But in a nice way of like, my life's crazy. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you sooner. And they're usually like, no, my fault. I read it at a red light or whatever it may be. Not taking follow-ups personal is probably the best advice that you will get with follow-ups ever, because I mean, we're probably all guilty of saying, oh, I meant to respond to that person. And I like when Jamie said her heart is her favorite follow-up, it made me want to instantly go back and see if Jamie had sent me any hearts, because she probably has, because I'm like, me, a mess. trying to make all the things work. So again, I don't take the follow-ups or the lack of their response as a personal dig against the question I asked them, or that sort of thing. So it just makes the whole conversation just go a little bit easier with them by me taking some of the ownership and taking that pressure off their plate. I love some of the, like, getting on these calls, listening to these calls, because I get so many great ideas. And I think on the slide you had book club, Jamie. I think that's such a great idea. And it looked like the book club could be something for your enjoyment or something catered around wellness. I don't know if any of you guys have looked into, I love belly to belly conversation. So there is a wellness workshop in my area right now. So I'm excited to go to that and then follow up in those groups with actual like conversations that we started in person. So again, this is a little bit different than what I've experienced before. But I am loving it. And I really do love how Rita said it. I know I said that when I first started talking, but I really do love that not following up should feel worse. It should feel way worse. I don't know. I think that's the process I typically go through. And I just think that the voice memos go a long way with people hearing their name spoken. And I love that these can be used at any time to get that conversation going again in a nice, welcoming way.
I think this is gold. I'm literally saving these 3. I think that's such a personal, safe, like friendly, like approachable way to, like, an effective way. So these are great. Thanks, Carrie. Purple Jace with the purple power. I love it. Go for it. You're on mute. You're muted, my friend.
Sorry about that. I did use purple because that is a power color. So it's good that you picked up on that. I'm glad that you guys went into different examples of what you actually say, because I wanted to focus a little more on the structure. I think a lot of people go into follow-ups without the 3 set E's, which I call energy, expectation, and engagement. They just don't have those things set in their mind on how they're going to do it. And so if you can set that right out the gate, like, what energy do I want to bring to this? So that's why I have Oprah and Taylor Swift, because whenever I'm like, okay, like, I need to show up as my most confident self, like Jamie was saying, like, be more sure, like, inspire that confidence. You really have to bring that piece of your personality to the table when you're doing follow-ups. It just completely sets the energy and tone of what's going on. So number 1, like, set your energy and what space you want to work from when you're doing follow-ups. The expectation, I think, jacks up a lot of people. They have, oftentimes it's around timing, right? Because it's not going fast enough for them, or it's around control, things that they don't have control over. So if you set expectations for yourself in your follow-up process, like, what do I personally have control over? What is my timing and pace? And I promise, if you take your timing and pace out of it, you'll have a much more successful and enjoyable follow-up process. And if you take out the things that you can't control, like them pushing buy, purchase, right? Like, that's not your job. Our job is to educate. Our job is to follow up. Our job is to connect. Our job is to invite. Our job is to follow through. I really like to look at following up as following through. When I sit down to work, that just feels a lot more organic for me. I like to look at each contact that I have as if I'm like following a story, like we're on this journey together and I'm like following. You know how you like write those posts and then underneath you're like following because you want to see what other people's feedback is? That's kind of how I look at my follow-up process. I'm just following the story and I'm checking into it every now and then to see where we're at with it. Does that make sense? And then engagement is really just the structure. So for me, I have to have a lot of flexibility within the structure of how I work. Both are super important to me. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but when you have like neurodivergent brain, ADHD, you have to learn how to mold these systems in ways that make sense for you. So my general approach to most areas of our business, marketing, finding, closing, following through, is having rules of engagement. That's my structure. So anybody that's been on my power hours, my rules of engagement for finding are networking, connecting, and inviting, right? Just thinking from a broad point of view. With follow-ups, it really is, I have a forever follow-up forever mentality. There's never a time where I'm like, when do you stop following up? I don't. Once you're on my list, you're on my list. Once you're in my life, you're in my life. That's just what it is. And so I got really good at redirecting. So one thing that I really want to say, and I'll go through my 3 pieces really quick, is there are objections that are impassable. So if someone's allergic to something in one of the products that you have, that is an impassable objection, right? That's something that you can't overcome. And so instead of just being like, okay, this isn't for you, you redirect. Well, what else can we do? What else do you need? What else are you struggling with, right? I got really good at that. So if you are dealing with a lot of objections with people, there's always a way to redirect. There's always a way to find a solution for what they are going through. And I think the more you journey with people through that process of trying to find solutions for these things that really are missing or ailing them, like, it really does build your bond stronger. And if that becomes the focal point more than here's the link, here's what it costs, here's what I need you to buy, it just changes the experience. So I'm just going to take you through my I have like a very simple follow-up process. Number 1, I track it. You have to have some kind of tracking system. It can be whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be fancy. Mine is not. I create a new note in my phone every single month. I write down the person's name, where I'm talking to them, and what I'm talking to them about. That's it. That's my tracking system. Super simple. But what's cool is I take the previous month, and whoever I didn't connect with in a way that got them into the community or got them into a product or got them into advocacy or whatever it was that I'm talking to them, I just add that to a master list. So I take the leftovers and I just transfer them forward. So I always have this list that I can continue to cycle through, but I always have a new list for each month. That just keeps everything really simple for me. But what's interesting is if you can create a system that is easy for you to access. I do it in notes on my phone because my phone goes everywhere with me. So I never am like, who didn't I talk to? So if I'm sitting in my car at my kids' games or whatever it is, I can just pull it out. But also if you can build it over time, if that list can compound over time, you'll always have someone to talk to. And that's really the name of the game when it comes to follow-ups for me. The second part of it is really strong communication. If you're not a great communicator, this is the area that you really need to focus in on. I can give you a head start if you want. There's something called active listening. Has anyone heard of this term? There's a little pie chart down here. It's an actual skill that you can learn and build on how to actively listen. This is one of the most valuable skills you can learn in your entire life for any human interaction that you have, not just for business and sales, but that is where I would start practicing at active listening and just learning what that actually looks like and what that means. I think, again, knowing when the objection is impassable and when to redirect, right? Like if they're allergic or they already are using supplements, be like, well, what's your skincare like? What's your home care like? What swaps have you made yet? It's really just being conversational. I personally, whenever I start my follow-ups, if I'm following up with people that have ghosted me or the conversation has slowed, I always start by removing the pressure. I always do what I call a pressure release start. And that looks like, hi, I didn't forget about you. I've been so busy. I'm so sorry I didn't follow up. I take away the pressure of them not responding to me, because a lot of the times that pressure is so awkward for people. But if you just kind of take that on yourself and be like, oh, it's my fault, we haven't been talking, it just re-engages the conversation. And I love that. So that's really good. I also am really transparent and I'm really direct. In fact, just this morning, I've been talking to this girl on Instagram for a few weeks about becoming an advocate. And I've followed up pretty consistently with her, but she hasn't been responding. And so generally what I do is I try to guess why they aren't responding, and I directly address that. And so most of the time it's timing, right? Or they don't want to spend the money, or they're not really that interested. I generally tend to go with timing and pace, because that's really what I think is the most important thing to me. And so I just responded and said, hey, I'm doing an onboarding call next Tuesday. I do this once a month. And I said, if you want to get going, that's the date that we need to work toward. If you don't, I do these every single month. So there's no pressure. Like, timing and pace is one of my number one values with people that I work with. That's something that I respect deeply. It's something that I think is really key to people's success. And so I let her know my expectation. I think that that is such a powerful tool when you can let people know what your expectations are, because a lot of the times we're stressing about their expectations, which again is something we have zero control over. So if we just are fully transparent and direct and tell them exactly what we are expecting, thinking, needing, whatever it is, it allows them to kind of move within that structure more confidently. So I'm a big believer about not beating around the bush. If I feel like that's happening in a conversation, I'll stop the conversation and address directly whatever it is that's happening, because I think that that again just builds a stronger trust with you and the person that you're journeying with. So asking a lot of questions with genuine care and just using your own intuitive follow-up based on the conversation. And then the very last thing, the sequence and flow, I think is important. For me, I talk to people back and forth. As soon as the back and forth stops, I usually give people 24 to 48 hours before coming back to it. And then I follow up with them once a week until something happens, and if nothing is happening after I've reached out to them once a week for a month, then I just reach out to them once a month. And I focus on kind of like what Jamie was saying, just other kinds of interaction. I still engage with their content. I still engage with what's going on with them. I think it's really key to touch base with them again. I think Carrie was saying that, and just checking in on them. And what I like to do is, instead of like directly addressing what's not being responded to, I'll say, hey, I know we chatted last month about your X, Y, and Z, and I redirect back to their pain points, like why we started talking in the first place. And then I'll say, how is your energy? Are you sleeping better? Like, where are you at with this stuff? And it just kind of starts the whole flow and conversation over. And a lot of the times, if they're still dealing with that stuff, it's a much easier sell the second time, because they realize all this time has passed and nothing has changed. And it's sort of like a, do it or get off the pot kind of moment. But that's when you have a little more leverage in your follow-up, and you really can push a little bit and be like, listen, I'm here to move you forward. I think just really establishing yourself as somebody who genuinely wants to see these pain points relieved is key. And that happens over time. That's not going to happen in one or two interactions. That's going to happen in you consistently showing up for them, right? In those times of need for them in a lot of different ways, supporting their content, reaching out to them and checking up on them in all these different areas. So the last two things that I just really wanted to get through are, let me just make sure I got them all. Oh, this is my last tip, and this is a really good one. I've gotten really good at just asking people if they like being followed up with. I think that this is so key. So like, if you're following up with somebody who isn't responding, I will say to them, also, just let me know if you like me following up with you, because some people really like it and need it, and some people really don't. And I don't want to keep following up if that's something that you don't like. Like, it's okay for them to be like, I don't like this. But what is hard, you guys, is when you're living in that ambiguity, like when you're in the limbo and you don't really understand what's going on. That's why I'm always like, let me know what's going on. Like, I can take it either way. This isn't a personal process. Like, this is just, again, the journey that I'm following, the story that I'm following and checking in on. So if you don't like being followed up with like this, it's never going to work. But most of the time, you guys, people say, no, I really like that you're following up with me. I'm sorry, I'm not responding. Right. And again, you've got leverage to be like, well, let's just take some action. Like, let's do something now. So those are my tips. I'll put in the 8 active listening into the chat so that you guys have it. And you can Google that and start. And that's it.
Good. I think Brene Brown says clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And I think of what that last tip you just said of like, you know, let's get clear on where we're at. Like, let's make sure we're having the same conversation here. That was so good. Follow up forever. Lindsay, do you want to close us out today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. These ladies have said so many good things, so I hope you have written this down. They are very structured and they have very like solid systems. Something that I want to talk about is just being okay with following up and the patience and reminding you that the conversation is always going to lead you to the conversion. So I kind of want to just do an overall, maybe this is more of a mindset piece that I'm going to walk through. But it's as simple as being okay with consistently following up in an authentic way that feels really good to you. I like reiterating like what all of them have said, and something that I want to like highlight it is important that you, when you're addressing these follow-ups, that they know you're busy too. They know you've got life going on too. That you don't want them to think that you're just sitting on the other side of the computer waiting. Okay, so make sure that you are just like Carrie suggested, where she's like, just getting back to this, you know, that is important for them to hear. Like, they will feel better to hear you say like you have just as much of a crazy situation going on with your life, because I made this post in the team and this is how I'm here right now. It is 2024 and exposures, you have to be ready for more. You have to be ready to expose them more to the benefits, to the products, meaning like your posts, your conversations, your follow-ups. You have to be willing to continue to follow up. I was going through a follow-up series yesterday, which is what prompted me to make that post. And I was like, I think I followed up with this person 10 plus times and they just ordered. And it wasn't even what they originally wanted. And so people are distracted. People who have shown interest, I believe, are still very much interested, but they are so busy. They are so distracted. People are just sitting and watching reels, or they're at the kids' sports, or they've got, calls going on, and they will open your message and then life will go on and they will forget that they opened your message. I do this all the time. So it's on us to be okay with consistently following up with them. And that can look different, which is what the girls were walking through here in these slides, where it's like, it might be a heart. It might be you see a post like one of the ladies who just ordered, who was originally starting with a routine, but decided to start with body butter. Instead, she was like all in. She was so excited. We had the link, we had all the things, and she went quiet. And I was like, okay, like she, like you don't know what's going on. And I was looking at this and I wanted to show you guys this as a screenshot, but for whatever reason, it wasn't letting me put it up. So I have it sitting here on my phone, and she showed interest in January and she just ordered this week. So that was 60 days. And there was, let's see, we've got, I'm pretty sure I did like 10 follow-ups, 1, 2, 3. And then in the middle, all of a sudden up pops, she had a hysterectomy. And I was like, oh, I didn't know she was having surgery. So I stopped the follow-up and I shifted to, how are you feeling? Like, how is surgery? And then I stayed on that topic and I had that conversation with her for a while. And I continued to check in because a hysterectomy is a huge healing journey. So from there, it eventually turned into her starting with body butter, which is something that the redirection that Jace was talking about, I think is really important too, because if they, and this has happened twice this week. So we're focused up here on like, maybe it's the routine, maybe it's the skincare, whatever it is that they're looking at. And we're, encouraged to do bundle packages, or we're encouraged to maybe hit that block that they're, this block thing that we have going on for the extra $150, which is like $100 order. And you might be thinking that way. But I had this one who had her surgery, who was originally going in that direction, but decided to start with body butter. So we took a completely different direction, and she started small. So it's something that she has now got where she can start to get used to the product, right? And maybe she will then expand and start the routine. I had another one who really wanted to become an advocate, wanted the full routine. And she went quiet on me too, because she didn't have the financials right now to buy the whole thing. So I stopped and I was like, I have a code for $10 off. What if we just start you on one of the products, the collagen or the hydrate detox? Let's just start one and let's get you going on that. And you'll get, you'll start to get some result in that way. And then let's expand from there. And she was like, oh, okay, let's do that. So redirection is real, especially with money right now. And that's where patience also comes in the second piece. I was saying it takes up to 20 exposures right now in 2024. Some are going to be faster because they trust you. They already know you. Some are going to take longer because they're not sure. They are very cautious with their spending. We are dealing with a really interesting economy right now. And so just be mindful of, like, people are really, really cautious. They're looking at products and they're looking at ours and they're trying to figure out the right fit for them. So it's important to just acknowledge, for me, it was like, I either let her sit and wait and then buy the whole thing, or I say, let's break this down. Let's start with one thing and we'll expand from there. And if you really are loving everything, then yeah, let's get you on as an advocate and we can start to work through that piece of it. So I wanted to say all of those things for you guys. And I also loved whoever said, I think it was Jace, about not bothering them and really finding out if they want to be followed up with. This is something that when they go quiet, I will literally be like, I really don't want to waste your time. I really don't want to waste my time. I just want to know, like, if you're still interested. I don't want to continue to like follow up here. If you're not, just let me know, no big deal. And most of the time, very, very rarely will I hear I'm no longer interested. It's usually I am. Keep following up with me. Don't forget about me. Okay. So that I want to just like reemphasize is really important. And then all conversations are important. And this is just the overall piece, which is your reach out. I think it's really important to remember people can be nervous to reach out to you. So don't be afraid to reach out to them, right? And follow up. Like, overall, it's patience, it's consistency, it's doing it in a way that feels very authentic to you. Remembering that the people are distracted. So yes, take the emotion out of it, because there are so many times where they're like, life this, life that, this happened, that happened, there was a surgery, there was this, there was that. And like, it's on their timeline, which I know can be tough for our own goals, but math is the path. Like Jamie said, like, it's always about math. It's the more connections you're making, the more conversations you're having, the more opportunity for you to hit the goals that you have for yourself. And what I'll say also that is super interesting here in this business, because I come from the other one where it was basically all social media. It's interesting to move these conversations to in person, or even if it's a quick phone call, how much that can move someone and build their trust faster. I don't know what it is about here. I think even when you guys, I've not done a pop-up yet, but I'm really like excited to. And I even think just knowing that they're like getting the little hand treatment and they're smelling the product helps move it a little bit faster, because that trust piece starts to get built. And remember, they're being cautious about how they spend. That's just like where people are at. So I want to encourage that type of work if it's an option for you. So yeah, that's what I got. Questions?
So many golden nuggets, Lindsay. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing all that. I loved it so much. I was seriously taking notes through the whole thing. I love learning with you all and learning side by side, and sometimes just reiterating what you believe to be true, hearing it from someone else's heart, you're like, okay, I am on the right path. So that was incredible. Again, following up, that is guys, that is the biggest part of this whole equation, whether you're going to be successful and grow your business, or if you're going to say this isn't working for me. And that's a hard truth. So having lots of people to talk to, like Jay said, have a way to track it. Make sure that you're following up. Make sure you're doing so in a way that they feel heard. I love how Lindsay talked about switching that conversation mode to, okay, time out. Like, this person's going through life right now. Like, I know we all are, but like, she had the awareness to redirect the conversation, as Jay said. And I love that. Being a good human, taking it all the way back to Jamie said at the beginning, you know, we are dealing with humans and we're dealing with their health and wellness and overall improving their wellness with just one simple swap. When you feel that in your heart, I think it goes back to, like Rita said, you feel guilty for not following up. So I don't know if there's any questions. Jamie is dealing with a puppy situation right now, so we're wrapping up. But if anyone has any questions, I'm not sure that I can stop the recording from my end.
Also, you guys, if you ever don't know what to say, like if you have somebody and you're like, I don't know what to do with this person, I don't know how to respond to this, like screenshot it, put it in the team hub. Like I can literally respond to anything. And I'll be like, oh, this is what you, and like half the people on this call could be like, here's what you say. Like that's legitimately how you learn. I learned through saying stupid things and burning bridges and then realizing like, oh, there's no bridge that's burnt. I have no shame in being like, this conversation has gone a weird direction. Let's start over. Like, I think like what Carrie was saying, like when you really just deal with the human stuff first, it really just changes the complete energy and tone of the conversation. And again, I have no shame being like, oh, we're talking about all this, like we've got completely off track. Like, let's start over. And that just